Hi, and welcome to another episode of White and Woke at Work. I'm very pleased to be with you today with Colin Jameson. Colin is a former LinkedIn member who's just recently been kicked off. He is our giant white anti-racist megaphone and has gotten himself in a bit of hot water, but I'm so pleased to have him with us today to share his journey to becoming the active anti-racist that we've come to know and love. And welcome, Colin.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Can you just share a little bit, since I touched on it in my intro, what did you say that got you kicked off the platform? Let's start with that.
So I linked an article of a website called Wall Street on Parade, which tackles Wall Street corruption and other issues in the corporate world, linking the founder of LinkedIn to Jeffrey Epstein and his attempt to revitalize his image after his first child rape case a few years ago. And so he's tried to not have that be a part of LinkedIn. And that's might be one of the reasons he left LinkedIn a few years ago, because coincidentally enough, it was around that time where the founder of LinkedIn left LinkedIn. So I've just been pissed off at LinkedIn because the platform is actively promoting white supremacy while stifling Black voices that highlight said white supremacy, and it needs to end. And so I would regularly call out C-suite and tag C-suite in articles and posts and anything I could, because, well, that's why it's there. I mean, they need to know these things. It's their platform. And so far as I know, they have not done anything except pay basic lip service to the LinkedIn community as to what they're doing about the white supremacy issue.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, Colin, I don't know if you're aware, but since you've left, there have been a number of articles that have been published about the issue in the New York Times and other publications about the very issue of suppression and their algorithms being biased towards, strong anti-racist voices like yourself. Aisha Joseph, for example, Tara.
Yeah, I did get the chance to read the NYT article. There was another one too. It's great that we have the articles going. I
DigiDay.
mean,
It was a DigiDay story.
yeah.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of talk about, what's happening there, but no one quite as boisterous and vocal as yourself, at least since I've been on the platform. And it's just really it's amazing, that you are, a white person who's just very outspoken about white supremacy. So can you just share, how you came up with the tagline for yourself, the giant white anti-racist megaphone?
Yeah, Guam for sure. No, it's not very short. But I guess the idea just came to me because I made this profile for LinkedIn like 3 years ago when I started working in clothing and custom clothing. I never really did anything with it. And then a few months ago, I said, hey, it's COVID. I guess I got some extra time. Let me check this LinkedIn thing. And then I found out it was terribly, I found out it was terrible when it came to the white supremacy and racism issues. And I saw it was the first thing. It was an article about making fun of Mayor Lightfoot in Chicago, and they call her Beetlejuice because she has a fucked up hairdo and she doesn't dress well. Whatever. That's not the point. The point is it was all race based. It was like, this woman this woman that, like, has nothing, no political agenda to this post other than to be derisive and racist and all of this. And it was sponsored by Law Enforcement Today, which has since been kicked off of the platform finally. Yeah. But it was a white supremacist group that literally all they did was stay on LinkedIn and make fun of Black stuff. And it was terrible. And so I found it. And because I'm in Chicago and there were some Chicago voices on it. And so I was just like, all right, well, fuck this, fuck this, fuck this, fuck this, and fuck this, because you're wrong. And so that day I was just like, okay, well, I guess I need to make sure that people understand what I'm doing here. So that's when I just went to the tagline and said, I think I played around with a few different phrases, but I wanted it to be kind of a mouthful, obviously. And so giant white anti-racist megaphone just came into play. Anti-racist, I can't take credit for, that's from the Kennedy book, but I just kind of said, well, I'm big, I'm white, megaphones are white, what the hell, right?
Yeah.
So very much, it just came to me playing around with the title, and then I just took hold of it and ran with it because I know there's other whites that feel like me. I just know that they're afraid to talk.
So what makes you unafraid?
Because I have nothing to lose. This is my world. It's my business. It's my life. I don't own much beholden to a corporation or a human being other than myself. Right. Yeah. So when I see people online, they're like, oh, I'm going to call your work and call you out. I'm like, you going to call me? Like, so honestly, I have nothing to lose. I have nothing to be worried about. You know, people like Madison Butler and like some of the other people, they also have a platform where they can speak and be heard and not have to worry about their job because their job cares about them, which is most companies don't care about their employees, as I'm sure we all know.
Yes.
So I think it's just an issue of it's mine to own. I own it. I'm not beholden to a paycheck or a clock to, you know, a time clock to punch. You know, it is of no concern to me what people think of me or what people think of my business. Or some guys like, I would never buy clothes from you. And I'm like, I'm not trying to sell you clothes. I'm just telling you you're a fucking racist.
Yeah. And so what do you have to gain, Colin, from being outspoken on issues of anti-Black racism or anti-racism generally?
Honestly, my self-esteem and fucking honor as a human fucking being. And I swear a lot, so that's going to come out. But it's just insane how people do not understand that this is who you are. And you see my post, I tag them like, you are who you vote for.
Yep.
You are who you do anything for, whether it's you vote for, you believe someone. If you follow someone, that means you believe their opinion, you believe what they have to say. That means it's yours, that you are following it. You are not reading, you are not watching news, you are not absorbing knowledge to make your own decision. You are following someone else's. And that's the problem. People just follow and then they act like it's their own, but it's not. But that's because they're programmed by that message.
Right. So I guess, you know, when did the change come in your life? I guess, were you always this way, justice minded and right is right, wrong is wrong, or did you kind of evolve?
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, there's a good saying, and it's, you know, there's what's legal and there's what's right. And so I think the idea is that I've always felt that way, but like, I'll admit, like, we weren't the best kids growing up. We would make fun, we'd make bad, you know, race-based jokes. It's not like we sit around using the N-word, but like, we'd make stereotype jokes. We were kids, right? Like, that's just what's done. But the point is we don't fucking do that shit as adults. I'm not doing that as an adult, right? Like, I'm not going around sitting in groups with my friends, you know, smoking weed or drinking and saying like, oh, fuck those people, they're ruining the fucking, you know, whatever. And that's the problem, is we have these same types of people who never had those lessons or never had something wake them up, you know, woke, to get them to believe that they should not believe these things.
Right.
And, you know, it's the adjustment, I think. And so for me, I was sitting in the suburbs with an ex-girlfriend, living the house husband life, working part-time, doing my own thing. And then Michael Brown got shot. And I was just like, well, this is fucking terrible. So I got angry and I went to Vistaprint. I made some shirts and I gave them to some friends and I started wearing them. And I went on Facebook and blah, 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 blah. And that's when I found out how fucking racist everybody really is, you know? And so since then, and it wasn't Michael Brown personally. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I love Michael Brown, I know who that was. It was just the nature of the fucking murder. It was just like, what? I get the Trayvon Martin thing. You want to know why? Because that's the fucking law in Florida. That's the law. It's fucking stupid. I don't agree with it, but that's the law.
Right.
But like with the Michael Brown thing, it's like, you just murdered that kid. Like, you know, and so I understand that there's terrible laws having to do with guns and confrontations and such, but like the Trayvon Martin thing was terrible, but apparently that's the law in Florida. What are you going to do, right? Like, go to the governor and say, change the law, right? But in this case, it was just a wholesale murder. Like, just nothing wrong, no reason, no justification, just shot dead, you know? And so there needs to be laws passed to prevent that, but there also needs to be so many different laws to take care of the confrontation of these issues. And I think that the Michael Brown thing just tipped the edge for me. I mean, I wasn't going to say I was like crying, you know, in the fetal position, but like I was fucking angry and I was, you know, I was sad for humanity.
Yeah. And why I'm doing this series, Colin, really is to just figure out, if we can figure out, you know, why it is that some people, you know, have that empathy for humanity. You know, they come to that awareness or that awakening, and others just they revert. You know, they hold their defensive positions and they say, I'm not racist and I don't know what all those people are complaining about, and they go in the opposite direction. So it's really curious for me what makes people sort of run towards, anti-racism and anti-racist work, and others maintain their white privilege and their white supremacy, and they want to hold on so tight. So what makes you different?
I don't believe that whites are supreme.
Fair enough.
No, but all levity aside, I mean,
Yeah.
like, I'm 12 different whites. Like, I'm Russian, Polish, I think a little bit Scottish, Welsh, Irish, like Anglo-Saxon, like, pure. What the fuck is that? Like, there's no one in America right now that looks like me that is somehow magically 100% whatever the fuck they think they are. That's insane.
Yeah.
So right there, white's not supreme. I don't see anything supreme about this. Like, so if we're talking about a color thing, like, is the issue that white is seen by all as some sort of like the highest thing to, some people believe it's like the highest, like, I guess, caste, for lack of a better word. Like, some white people think like, oh, it's so great to be white. And I'm just like, I don't understand that supremacy, to be honest, because I'm not a supremacist. But I also know the logic behind it, that there is no logic behind it. It doesn't make any sense. Like, oh, you got more sun than me? Fuck you. But like what does that even mean? Like, my forefathers, like, I've talked to people who say they're blue bloods because they can trace back their genes to, like, the founding fathers, not necessarily that related to presidents, but just that, that's how far it goes back. And I'm like, so you think that they were somehow all white too? Like, all pure? Like, you think Thomas Jefferson was just like 100% like corn-fed Virginian? No. Like, they're all mixed white dudes from Europe that were sick of it and came here to not have that shit no more. And now we act like they were somehow they were supremacists in the sense that they were sick of being in under a monarchy's control. So they're like, I know, let's do this cool stuff for the new white people. But they weren't like the pure. What are we talking about? Are they like Vikings, or can they trace their ancestry back to the Netherlands or the Caucasus Mountains? Like, exactly, that's how you're white you are? No, none of these people can. We're all immigrants from all over, and we have been for thousands of years. And there's no way that somehow, like, a certain type of white is the purest and like, oh God, let's all worship it.
Yeah. And so I guess, was your family as vocal as you, your brothers and sisters?
So my mom, I guess, she was like the block watch captain. She was, she was definitely vocal. But our house was open. Like, we lived in a black neighborhood growing up, and my mom's kitchen was like, she'd come downstairs in summer, and it's like 1 p.m. There's like 6 people in the kitchen, eating snacks, drinking soda, whatever. But that was like how it was. So my mom was very, vociferous about her, I guess, her political leanings, diehard liberal, and I didn't take after her, thank God, because I don't believe in any sort of political extremism. And I think it's just like, she cared about the neighborhood to a certain extent. She cared about my friends and our family and like stuff like that. But I would say that she was just like very much a progressive woman. She just like cared about, she didn't really see, like, I hate to say, like, I don't see color, but I mean, back then, like, not seeing color was like a progression. Like, growing up, it's like having a white mom in a black neighborhood that's like, all these kids are mine. And then like having the same thing across the street at, my friend's house, where it's like, well, we're just going over there and we're going to eat food and drink and watch cartoons and shit. Like, it's everybody's house.
Yeah.
That's just like, so I think that definitely played a part, because now I'm like, oh, look, ethnic people or black people, that's normal to me, And so I think there's to a certain extent, there's people out there who are like, well, I've never had any experience with people of color, and all of the people of color experiences I've had are based on stereotypes, So I think there's a certain aspect of not having been raised around people of color. Yeah. But I also was unique. I'm not unique. I mean, call it the Eminem thing. Like, Eminem grew up in the wrong side of the tracks in a black neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. But that's true. It's not spoken on, because, like, I think, and there's a form of white supremacy and a form of like white privilege. It's like, if you look at me in the last few years, there's no way you think I came from a ghetto in Milwaukee, for sure. 10 years ago, probably, And so I think there's a certain paradigm shift for whites that like didn't experience a people of color experience. Like, I didn't go to school with people of color. I didn't go to, I didn't travel. there's another thing. I didn't travel and see foreign people in a place that made my mind, go somewhere. Like I have. Like I have traveled to Thailand, Europe, like not a lot. I'm not crazy rich or fancy or anything, but I've been around and it opened up my eyes.
Yeah.
And I read this thing about like the average kid, especially the average Black kid, they never leave their fucking hometown. It's just like a statistic. There's nothing negative or positive about it. It's just a statistic, but it is negative because people aren't getting out. People aren't learning things. People aren't seeing like, oh shit, there's people of color all over this world. They're just like me, except they're not my color, right?
Yeah.
They're just people. They just don't look like me.
Yeah, I think you're touching on something that's really important. It's just to have exposure to diverse groups, whether it's in your home country or abroad. I mean, it really makes a difference in terms of your worldview and your ability to appreciate, like you said, humanity. Just having empathy for others, through that lens of just having those experiences, traveling a little bit and seeing something outside of yourself. And too many people, I think, don't have those experiences, and it limits their thinking, limits their worldview for sure, and their perceptions of others. So thank you for sharing that. I want to go back a little bit to I guess your world of work right now, and opportunities that you have to improve things in the lives of Black and brown people, and some of the things that you might be doing with your anti-racist megaphone.
I guess as far as work is concerned, I mean, I think what I'm going to do, just because that's the trend, is I'm gonna shift into like a protest kind of streetwear, design, I guess, and offer them at reasonable price points, because no one's buying a $1,000 suit anymore. Like I get that. Like I'm not an idiot trying to sell $1,000 suits in a virus, but at the same time I have to be like, well, what can I sell for $25 that's still cool and makes a difference? Right. So I mean, honestly, getting into the face mask and the t-shirt, and just kind of like, I guess something I just thought in my head, struggle wear. Like we're struggling, like this is like, like the streetwear that like redefines a generation of people who like are sick of it, I guess, is what I've been working on. The website is still I need to update the website and to reflect that. It's still kind of the old one.
And are you a one-man show? Like, do you have staff that work with you?
No, I mean, it's just me. I mean, I have an intern that I can call on, and I have other people that like assist me, but I don't have like a workforce right now.
Yeah. It's difficult when you're a sole proprietor, an entrepreneur, working for yourself, to kind of find.
And I think another thing too is that I touch on is that I'm trying to get more and more into the sustainable clothing space. Mm-hmm. So like upcycling, which is basically like, finding old stuff and making it look better, or tailoring it, or stuff like that. But the idea of like a carbon imprint, sustainability, like pro Black Lives Matter kind of, like what's the problem in Chicago? There's a lot of Black people without jobs. Oh, well then maybe we should have a giant t-shirt factory in Chicago that makes cool pro Black Lives Matter shirts that are made in Chicago. I don't know, but like something that would revitalize jobs in Chicago, because I think Chicago used to be a world city. Now it's just a city for a handful of corporations to make a fuck ton of tax breaks off of a stupid government, and there's no global, interesting international workforce anymore. There's no interesting shops. All the shops are closed down. Like you come downtown Chicago, Michigan Avenue, yeah, it should be shut down, because otherwise people are going to get pissed again and start breaking stuff again, because, well, nobody's fixing the problems. So I think Chicago needs to have an intersection of fashion, because it used to be, because everybody used to come here from all over the world to buy fabric, and now no one does. Yeah. It's crazy. Chicago we were the fashion industry for a long time in America. New York was the jet setters, but Chicago built it. Like we were the ones building the fabric, like the factories. We were the ones like doing everything until everything got outsourced. So I think like an intersection of these things, sustainability, Black Lives Matter, which is really just, I mean, if more people had jobs and education and good food, then like there probably wouldn't be the need for Black Lives Matter, right? Yeah. There wouldn't be the need for these things, because there are things that make this thing not exist, because everybody has things they need to survive.
Well, yeah, that's why I mean, this movement for social justice is so much bigger than just the police brutality, right, and the police killings.
Yeah, that's just the big. That's just the lynchpin. That's probably not the best phrase to use, but that's the no, though it is a good phrase to use. That's the linchpin, literally. Yeah. That is the literal linchpin. Is the violent and overly aggressive militarized police force that kills Black people for fun. It looks like.
It looks like. And then now at least we have an opportunity to improve things in other aspects of our society, like the workplace. So, you know, hence me branching out and doing this thing on my own, and then having people like yourself on as a guest who are also entrepreneurs. You know, we don't, like you said, you're not beholden to anyone. And I'm certainly not anymore, precisely because of some of the experiences that I've had. So I appreciate you sharing your story with us, and of course, all your passions for this anti-racist work. So, what's next for you? What are your plans? I mean, after you get this streetwear going, and
I
you
mean,
have
honestly, it's getting money, like putting together the idea and presenting it to the people in Chicago that have money. Or, I've talked to some people that are like, "Hey, Colin, put together the idea, put together the business prospectus, blah 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 blah, business terms, and then we'll talk."
but in terms
So I
of
think it's just like getting,
anti-racism, like if you don't get
yeah,
back
like
on the
getting that.
platform,
Oh, LinkedIn,
if you
sorry.
don't get back onto LinkedIn, like what's
Oh, well, so with LinkedIn, the LinkedIn thing, I think I'm gonna go on Substack and just call out LinkedIn for what it is. And I mean, the first thing is going to be the Black Voices Matter on LinkedIn, I guess is a kind of a working title. But like the idea is that if there's a white person that recognizes this and writes a thought-provoking piece on it, maybe other whites will listen, you know?
yeah.
And that's a huge issue too. It's like, well, Black people are saying it. I don't really care. But, oh, whites are saying it. Oh, that's way more interesting now.
Well,
I'm
that's
white.
we're watching this show for that very reason, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of purposeful why I'm doing this series. Is just, you know, there's a lot of Black voices right now, and of course they're being amplified as they should. But I think it's important also to, you know, the people that actually have the power in society to have their voices heard as well, and you know, the influencers, the ones who care to do something, using their voice and their power to change things for people. So I appreciate you using your giant white anti-racist megaphone. It's how I came in contact with you, and people like yourselves that are part of this series. So I do appreciate you coming on and sharing the story.
Sure.
I'm going to wrap it there and say, you know, thanks so much to Colin for coming on, and please do like and share and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you on another episode. Oh, and you can reach Colin at cj@commoncustom.com, and he makes, of course, custom made clothing, and he's an amazing designer, and I should certainly plug
Or
that.
we could just talk about anti-racist stuff and how you should be more anti-racist.
Exactly. And I'm Janelle from All Things Equitable, and we'll see you next time. Be sure to subscribe. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.